Are you in the middle of your hero's journey? Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thursday Flow. Recently, I was listening to a lesson about something called the hero's journey. It's a pattern that appears in stories throughout history, from ancient texts through to modern movies. The hero begins in ordinary life, faces an unexpected challenge, struggles through uncertainty, learns and grows, and eventually returns changed. And the best stories aren't really about defeating monsters, they're about becoming a different person. Have you noticed how some of our favourite movies follow the same pattern? Think about Toy Story, and I'm going to use Toy Story and Finding Nemo because cartoons are a favourite of mine. So, Toy Story. Woody begins his comfortable, ordinary world as Andy's favourite toy. The loved, cherished toy. Then comes the call to adventure when Buzz Lightyear arrives. At first, Woody refuses to embrace the change. In fact, he fights it. His fear of losing his identity of being the most loved drives much of the story. The adventure begins when Woody and Buzz become lost. Along the way, they face trials, meet allies and enemies, Sid being one of the biggest, and Woody has to confront his own jealousy and insecurity. The real dragon isn't Buzz, as you would have guessed. It's Woody's fear that he is no longer enough. Oh my gosh, how many times has that resonated with myself? By the end, Woody returns home transformed. He discovers that friendship is more important than being number one. And then if we look at Finding Nemo, this one is almost a perfect hero's journey. Marlin begins in his ordinary world, but after losing his wife and most of his eggs, he becomes fearful and, oh my gosh, ever so overprotective. When Nemo is captured, Marlin receives the call to adventure. Along the way, he meets a mentor and companion, dear old Dory. I love her to bits. He faces obstacle after obstacle, sharks, jellyfish, whales, and his own fears. And in amongst all of that, Dory, in her naive simplicity, just goes through it all. I just love the way she just sails through without it being a problem. The dragon he ultimately slays is his need to control everything. He returns home not only with Nemo, but as a changed father who has learned to trust. So the best stories aren't really about defeating monsters as such. They're about becoming a different person. Defeating the fear, defeating that thing inside us. And isn't that true of our lives? My dragons weren't sharks or space rangers. They were divorce, cancer, uncertainty, loneliness, and wondering whether I was strong enough to keep going. Most of us don't wake up one morning and volunteer for hardship. We don't ask for divorce, illness, financial setbacks, grief, or disappointment. Yet many of us find ourselves walking through those very experiences. I know I did. There was a time when I was a teacher, a grazier's wife, and a mother with a fairly predictable path ahead. Then life suddenly took its unexpected turns. I navigated divorce, found myself rebuilding as a mature age woman, managing a now very small farm acreage, facing cancer, and learning to carry responsibilities I never imagined would become solely mine. None of those experiences were on my wish list, let me assure you. And if I'm honest, there were moments, many moments, back there in the beginning of it all, when I wondered whether I was strong enough to even keep going. The hero's journey describes a stage where you leave behind the person you once were. And sometimes that simply isn't a choice. Sometimes it's life that makes that choice for you. That it was for me. The identity you had no longer fits. The plans you made no longer apply. The certainty you once relied on disappears. It's uncomfortable, frightening, and even overwhelming at times. How do I know? Because I've been there. But along the way, something remarkable can happen. You begin learning new skills. When you say enough is enough, when you draw the when you draw the line in the sand, so to speak, and you decide to be a victor and not the victim. You discover strengths you didn't know you possessed. You meet people who encourage you, uplift you, and if you have good, solid friends, then they will be the ones who lovingly tell you, you've got this, get up and just keep going. I am ever so appreciative of my friends who said that and got me going again in those down times. You start asking different questions. You start looking for solutions, ways around it, ways forward. Slowly, without even noticing, you begin becoming someone new. Now, that transformation rarely, if ever, happens overnight. For me, it happened through one decision at a time, one after the other. A difficult conversation with a psychiatrist, a difficult conversation with myself, another with a counsellor, and the choice of getting up and choosing to continue moving forward through the darkness and gloom anyway. And perhaps the biggest lesson I've learned is that courage doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes courage is simply making breakfast when your heart is heavy. Sometimes it's asking for help. Sometimes it's planting a seed, caring for your animals, or taking the next small step when the future feels so uncertain. The hero's journey also talks about facing a dragon. In real life, our dragons often aren't outside us. In fact, I would say our dragons are the ones inside us. And they can be fear, self-doubt, bitterness, the belief that our best years are behind us. Wow, when my world turned upside down when I was in my early 60s, that was certainly me. Where to from here? The best is behind me. The temptation to give up. Those are the dragons many of us wrestle with every day. And when we face them honestly, something begins to shift. We become more compassionate, more resilient, more grateful. And eventually, we discover that our story has value. Not because everything went perfectly, quite the contrary, but because we kept going. And that's one of the reasons I share my own experiences today. Not because I have all the answers, far from it, but because if my story helps someone else take one more hopeful step, then the difficult chapters of my life have gained a deeper purpose. So if you're walking through a challenging season right now, perhaps you're not lost. Perhaps you're simply in the middle of your own hero's journey, which is a fabulous way of looking at it. I'm halfway there. I've got, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel here. I'm on my way. The middle can feel messy. The middle can be messy. It can feel lonely. It can feel like nothing is changing. But growth, just like the seed in the soil, will happen quietly before it becomes visible. So, my encouragement this week is simple. Don't judge your story by the chapter you're in. Definitely not. Just keep taking the next step. Be Dory. Just keep swimming. In fact, my lovely horse mentor, who I was working with at the time, sharing the early, crap from the divorce and how I was feeling about things, I guess wanting to give up in that. It was she who said, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. And it resonated with me and has stayed with me. So just keep swimming. Just keep taking that next step. Keep learning. Keep believing that difficult seasons can shape remarkable people. And trust that one day you may look back and realise that what felt like your greatest obstacle became the path that revealed your strength. So thank you for joining me for Thursday Flow. Until next time, my lovely folk, keep learning, keep growing, and above all, keep choosing to thrive and shine.